Welcome everyone. This time I want to talk to you about specialized vocabulary in translation. As you may expect, it so happens that we are going to find a specialized vocabulary in some translations. They are proper to every field of work. We are going to find a specialized vocabulary in chemistry, in medicine. We are going to find specialized vocabulary in education. We are going to find a specialized vocabulary in masonry. We are going to find specialized vocabulary in carpentry. In any specific field you can think of course, we are going to find a specialized vocabulary. First, let's discuss what specialized vocabulary is. So, as we know, every term has every field, has its specific terms, its special terms, right? So, this specialized vocabulary is comprised by the jargon of the field, by its concepts, and the technical and professional terms that are found in these fields that are used either only on this field or are used with a special meaning in this field, right? So we can have that term applied in many different contexts. The term may have other meanings, more, let's say, general meanings, but in the specific fields they assume a new, more specialized meaning. Is it easy to translate specialized vocabulary? Many times it is easy to translate this specialized vocabulary, especially if we are familiarized with them or if they are linguistic borrowings, if they are either direct borrowings or indirect borrowings. Yes, so if that happens, if they are borrowings, of course, we can either see the equivalence by doing simply a translation of the terms, or we use the term in its original language, right? If we do a direct borrowing, then we simply take the word. For example, we use the word warm-up. Warm-up, we use it here in education in English. Even when we are speaking Spanish, we talk about ya hiciste el warm-up, right? Anyway, of course, we can also take the word and make it an indirect borrowing by translating the term. For example, honeymoon. Honeymoon, we say in Spanish, luna de miel, right? But you can see what I mean by this, I hope. So, when that happens, when you are either familiar with the area or if you can see that it's a direct or an indirect borrowing, then it's usually easy to translate these terms. Now, this is easy to translate. A su bebida el hombre había agregado mosca española. Now, that's a no, of course. That's just an example, guys. This is easy to translate because it is a loan translation, right? It's an indirect borrowing. The man had laced her drink with some Spanish fly. So, Spanish fly, mosca española, yeah, makes sense, right? Now, this is also simple to translate for another reason. Once the teacher had finished her warm-up, she asked her ESL class to prepare for the Q&A test. See, here we have the term warm-up, we have the term ESL, and we have the term Q&A test. So if we are familiarized in the field, of course this is going to be easier for us to translate, right? So, this is a possible translation. Cuando la profesora terminó su ejercicio preparatorio, le pidió a sus estudiantes de inglés como segunda lengua que se prepararan para el examen oral. So, yeah, it makes sense. It is easy for us to figure that out. We are familiar with the meaning of ESL. We are familiar with the meaning of a Q&A test and the meaning of warm-up, right? But of course, as I told you, here in Latin America, specifically here in El Salvador, we tend not to use that phrase ejercicio preparatorio. For us, it sounds a little off, right? So even though the people from Spain, they tend to really dislike the use of foreign terms in their language. They really hate extranjerismos, right? But we Latinos are much more accepting of this phenomenon. However, of course, not every specialized term is that easy to translate. Not every specialized term is that easy to make sense of. And basically, the specialized vocabulary can be challenging because we don't know the area enough, right? We don't know the area, we don't know the field of expertise we are translating enough, and that poses a bigger challenge. And that's why we normally try to specialize when we are doing translation in a specific field or specific fields. But to say I am going to translate everything that comes to my hands at the beginning especially may be extra challenging because we don't know the jargons for every field, and what's worse, we may end up making messes of translations of works we are assigned, of jobs we are assigned. Now, in order to make sense of this specialized vocabulary when we don't know them, it's extremely important that we consider the context. Because by studying the context, by understanding the context in which the term happens, we are going to be able to figure out the meaning of the term. That's not going to happen all the time. So even if we don't figure out the meaning of the term, context will allow us to understand that the usual meaning we understand for the word, for the phrase, for the lexical construction is not valid in that context, right? At least it will allow us to get this red light in our brains, right? Hey, wait a second, there's something going on here. I don't feel this term, the meaning of this term applies here. So we can go and we can do our corresponding research in order to figure out what the word means. As an example, consider this. Monty swears that he can tell a lot of a wine by simply looking at the legs, right? Oh no. Monty, do we need to talk to the Human Resources Department again? Is Monty harassing his coworker? Well, luckily, no, Monty is not harassing his coworker this time. This time anyway, right? No, Monty is talking about something that requires specialized knowledge. Because as it turns out, wine has legs. Yes, to be more precise, legs are these droplets. I don't know if you can appreciate them. These droplets of liquid that attach to the walls of the glass. You can observe wine legs. You can also observe whiskey legs and other liquids that tend to be a little oily and tend to attach to the walls of the glass they are being served on, right? So, problem solved, right? Nah, not really. Unfortunately, you need to remember the case of false cognates. So, yes, legs is not the word that we use in Spanish when we talk about these legs, right? In wine. The equivalent of legs in Spanish, in this context, of course, is lágrimas. So a good translation of Monty's utterance would be: Monty jura que él puede decir mucho sobre un vino con tan solo ver las piernas, right? No, sorry, not las piernas, las lágrimas, right? So that might work as an appropriate translation of this term, right? Now, do we happen to find words that cannot be translated? yes, it happens that there are some cases in which some terms are untranslatable, especially if they are quite new or if they are culture related, right? If they are culture related, every culture has its specificities. It has its idiosyncrasy, and I don't want to turn this into a culture lecture, but every culture has its differences, right? Let's put it simple. They have differences, and as such, we have understandings of the world that differ, maybe not so dramatically, but there are cases in which our cultures are not going to be the same, and we are going to have concepts in a specific culture that will not make sense in the other culture, right? So let me read for you. As we have already discussed in our previous lessons, not every term can be translated. One strategy that we can use when translating specialized terms is to include an explanation of the term. Yes, normally we do this in parentheses, right? We put the term and then we show the explanation for our readers, for our audience. This usually happens with terms used in specialized language. And I think I have a couple examples for you. Check this out. The current zeitgeist is one of a continuous struggle between political correctness and free speech, right? As you can figure out, guys, the word zeitgeist, yes, it's not even English originally. This word is not English originally, it's actually German in origin. And we use the direct borrowing in English, right? We use the direct borrowing in English, and in Spanish, we don't have a translation for zeitgeist. So we also use the direct borrowing of the word. We use the word zeitgeist, but because it's not a word that normally people know, and this is important, you need to remember, guys, that you need to take into consideration your audience, right? If your audience requires that you explain the term, you gotta explain it. We're talking about people who are not familiar with the field. If people are familiar with the field, if you are talking to specialists in the area, I would really insist that we don't do these explanations, because it's going to feel like we are talking down to them. But anyway, check it out. El zeitgeist, las ideas, creencias y el espíritu de una era actual es de una lucha continua entre la corrección política y el de la libertad de expresión. This is actually my belief. I'm not saying that this is the actual zeitgeist right now, but I can sense it in social media interactions and posts everywhere about this. You cannot say this because you offend these people, and then this, you know what, we need to be able to say whatever we feel because you are actually stopping me from being myself, etc. Right now, I'm not gonna get political right now. I'm not gonna get into this discussion, right? So this is something that we can do. I don't really like it much because I feel that the use of parentheses in this particular case, it creates a bump in the flow of the ideas. It creates a bump on the flow of the ideas, and I actually prefer to opt for something different. I prefer to use footnotes in these cases. So I could say something like this: el zeitgeist actual es de una lucha continua entre la corrección política y el de la libertad de expresión. And then I make the footnote and I write las ideas, creencias y el espíritu de una era in order to explain that this is the explanation for this term, right? And guys, I will continue talking to you about specialized vocabulary in the next video, okay? All right, bye.